welcome to another episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host, and on this episode, I am pumped to have Fabian Sommer on the show. He is an NFL bettor, and he is also a content creator at the Hammer Betting Network. Fabian, welcome to the show.
Ed, thanks for having me. I always enjoy. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and yeah, can't wait to talk football with you.
Absolutely. Fabian, please, I know I butchered your last name, and I meant to ask you before we got on the air, but can you say your full name for me just so that so that we can get your name right one time?
Okay, so in German it's Sommer, and that's the German word for summer.
Excellent. All right. Well, we have your last name correct once on this show, so we're gonna go with that.
No biggie.
Football Analytics Show is brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you, as 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips and analytics. I try to bring you insights from sharp people like Fabian. To sign up for free, go to thepowerrank.com. That is my site for better sports betting information and data. Once again, that's thepowerrank.com. Fabian, you are an NFL bettor. You also use quantitative methods in your process. Please give us an overview of what that process looks like in 2024.
Yeah, so I absolutely am in love with data, and I use several data sources like NFL Fast R, PFF, FTN, the Fantasy Points, Data Suite, to name a few. And I basically try to look at as much data as possible, and I try to interpret them so that I can make or inform better decisions when it comes to NFL betting. Basically, what I do is, on the one side, I have a purely quantitative model that uses all kinds of stuff like player projections, team level, predictive metrics, and puts it all together to come up with a number on the game. And then I also have, may sound a little bit weird, but a mental model. So before I run any data in the week, or look at any data, or look at any model number, I basically go through all the games in my head and try to write down a number on that game. And basically thinking that in my head, what should this game be at in terms of how I view and analyze strengths and weaknesses of those teams. And then I compare it to the market, to model numbers, and then throughout the week, it's basically about looking at more data, because not all the data is available Monday morning. Some data is available late Tuesday or Wednesday morning. So it's basically an iterative process going throughout the week. Maybe looking at certain matchup angles, like what is this defense playing for coverage? What are their coverage rates, blitz rates? What are they doing up front, stunt rates and stuff like that? And then I compare it to what is the opposing offense good at, what is the quarterback good at, and that's basically an iterative process throughout the week. Also, what's usually hugely important, obviously, is injury data. Each Monday morning, I go through all the injuries from the weekend. Basically, have a big sheet with injuries for every position group, for every team. I try to project injuries going forward. So, for example, when a wide receiver pops up with a hamstring injury, it certainly means that he is going to be out for 2 weeks. For example, Devontae Adams this week, I lean strongly towards him being out. AJ Brown was out for, I think, 3 weeks now. Can't remember, or at least 2.
Yep.
With the bye weeks, it's going to be 3 weeks. So basically, trying to predict injury and applying probabilities of guys playing, like, let's say, 50, 75%. And then you basically go from there and you use more incoming data, injury reports throughout the week. And that's basically an iterative process throughout the whole week, basically until Sunday morning. I usually try not to bet on Sundays because that's usually not a recipe for success. But sometimes I will also make bets on Sunday, either fading a strong market move where I simply disagree, or when there's like injury updates, inactive reports, and stuff like that, or we as a group get like a decent crossing price on Sunday. Those would be reasons to bet on Sunday. But other than that, that's basically my process throughout the week, which goes basically until Friday after finding injury reports. Then Saturday, unless there's a very random injury or practice squad signing on Saturday afternoon. Basically, we have to wait until Sunday morning to get more injury data. And yeah, that's basically my process throughout the week.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about predicting injuries. This is something I've been thinking about a little bit more. I presume your process is okay, if a wide receiver has an hamstring injury, we've seen this, I don't know, countless number of times in the past. We expect it's at least 3 or 4 weeks for the player to recover and be close to 100%. Is it something like that?
Yes, basically. There are historic references. So hamstring, for instance, wide receiver with a clear hamstring pull, it's very tough for them to only miss 1 week because they put so much stress on that hamstring. It's very hard to come back after 1 week. For offensive linemen or defensive linemen, that might be different sometimes, but they also don't have too many hamstring injuries. And then you have, I mean, I'm personally not a doctor, not a medical expert. I completely rely on historic data and what all these Twitter doctors basically tell me. A few really solid guys out there, and you basically use, or I basically use, like 4 or 5 different guys, put everything together, and then I sometimes just need to go with my gut feel. When there's like a 50-50 occasion, maybe we want to risk going now. Sometimes it also gets slapped in our face, and we are going to be on the wrong side in terms of injuries. Last week it was completely unlucky. I had Raiders pick him and -1 from earlier in the week. Was looking really good, and then yeah, Devontae Adams and Max Crosby got ruled out. So that's something
Yeah.
that you cannot do anything about it. You just have to swallow it, and it turned out very, very lucky in the end. But yeah, basically going off historical data for specific injuries, sometimes trying to read between the lines. For example, this week, Max Crosby is dealing with a high ankle sprain, and usually you would expect him to be out more than 1 week. But he specifically said that he plans to play this week. But Antonio Pierce said that they're going to go day by day, and they don't want to rush him back. So what are you going to do with that? Probably a 50-50 occasion, and you just gotta see the practice progression. He was DNP today. If he's like 3 times DNP, I would probably lean towards him being out. If he gets like a limited practice in on Friday, I think that he might at least play in some capacity. So that's basically the thought process throughout the week.
Is there a data source for X X player at this position with an ankle injury? He's out for so and so weeks, or are you making this yourself?
I'm very rarely doing it myself. I don't have a strong database on it. I basically have only like a 2 year data set, and I don't know. We don't really know whether it's strong. There are guys out there who have extended database like Deepak. I don't know his second name, but he's like a Twitter doctor, and he always states like data average. So guys with this kind of injury, their average is 3 weeks. Practice progression is key and stuff like that. But my own database is not really that strong, and I really rely more on like a crowdsourcing project, so to speak of.
Excellent. Is there a week 5 NFL bet you would be willing to share with us?
Actually, yes, more than one. I
Fantastic.
really like the Saints. When I look at Spank odds right now, it's basically 5.5 across the board. I really like the Saints this week. Part of the reason is something that we are going to address later on, I think. I think that I feel very dumb to say this, but I think that the Chiefs offense has some limitations right now. And I'm not sure that they're going to fix that in the short term. Long term, they will be fine. They will likely be completely fine in December and January. But I think that people might underrate the loss of Rashee Rice, who is really like their number one option in the passing game right now. He is averaging 3.5 yards per route run, top three number in the league after 4 weeks. There are a lot of separation metrics popping up in recent memory, and most separation metrics he's done pretty good. So I think that the Chiefs will struggle in the short term to really replace him. Xavier Worthy, love his potential. We will see the occasional deep shot to him, but we cannot bank on a 47-yard touchdown every week. Travis Kelce is aging. I think that's pretty obvious. Isaiah Pacheco is out. I think that the current running back room is a downgrade from him. So and on top of that, Mahomes is not having a great season so far. He's playing below his standards. He's having way too many turnover-worthy plays. So all in all, I think that this Chiefs or this current iteration of the Chiefs offense might need some time to get back on track and play up to the level that we are used to know from that offense. And the Saints, they have 4 decent cornerbacks. They have a decent pass defense. I think they're going to play tight coverage all day long, force Mahomes to hold the ball. And I'm just not sure that this current version of the Chiefs offense can get consistently open against that type of coverage. So, and when you really look at the season of the Chiefs so far, they really struggled to blow teams out. I mean, they were like a toe tip away from losing to Baltimore, or potentially losing to Baltimore. They had 2 basically goal line stands against the Falcons. They won 17-10 against a Chargers team that was without both starting offensive tackles, Justin Herbert hurt, no Derwin James, and it was really grind until the end to really cover by margin in this one. So on the other side, Saints, I really like their offense. I'm extremely high on their offense. I would love if Taysom Hill plays in this game because I think that he really matters. But even without him, I would still like the current market price of 5.5. I think that the Saints have a very good shot of keeping this one close until the end.
Hold on, before we get to the second game, is the Saints offense, was that a surprise to you, or did you expect Derek Carr and this unit to be better with the new offensive coordinator?
It was an absolute surprise. I mean, there was like hidden variance attached to it because you simply don't or didn't know how Clint Kubiak and this offense is going to play from a scheme perspective. the major issue was their offensive line, I would say. We have seen in the past that Derek Carr has that borderline top 10-ish production in him in the right circumstances, with the right playmakers, with the right scheme. 2015 Oakland Raiders, I think his second year with John Gruden, was it? So I think that they had a few good weapons, and Derek Carr could actually play like a borderline top 10 production quarterback. But I did not believe that it would all come together. And I really thought that this offensive line is going to be like a bottom 5 unit. I did not see this unit playing much better. And I also did not see this complete 180 in terms of offensive scheme. Like last season, under Pete Carmichael was his name. This was a very static and predictable offense. Not a lot of motion, not a lot of play action. I think they were like near the bottom of the league in terms of motion and play action rate. And now you are looking at a zone one scheme. I don't know, 40+% play action, at least early in the season. Very high motion rate. So Clint Kubiak is really trying to hit the easy buttons and get the most out of his offense and put some stress off that offensive line. And that's something that I just did not see coming. But I think from a process perspective, that this offense is for real, not in terms of them playing at a top 5 level throughout the year, but them very likely being an above average, maybe borderline top 10-ish offense going forward.
And if they are a top 10 offense with that defense, they should be able to win that division and maybe make some noise in the playoffs, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that the division is absolutely up for grabs. I'm quite high on Baker Mayfield and the Bucs offense. I'm not so high on the Falcons, and I could easily see Saints, Bucs battling for the division and Saints making the playoffs. And the NFC is not that deep. So once you get to the playoffs, I think that you probably won't be a touchdown plus.
Right. Fabian, you had a second bet you wanted to share?
Oh, yes. It popped a little bit like 1 hour ago. I think that has to do with the change in weather. But it's the over in the Panthers-Bears game. Currently looking at a market of pretty much 42. I'm closer or basically around 43. The concern earlier in the week was the wind forecast, which was around 17 miles per hour sustained winds. It got a little bit better. It's going to be a sunny day at Soldier Field. The wind came down a little bit. We are still 4 days out, so it could still change in both directions. But it seems like the market thinks that the weather is going to be fine as of now. And from a matchup perspective, the Bears offense, I'm pretty much down on Shane Waldron. I don't think that he gives the offense like anything. I think that they made a few subtle changes recently. They are calling more inside runs and not just outside zone runs. Caleb Williams is trying to hit more easy stuff underneath and not trying to go hero mode all the time. Keenan Allen is back, should be closer towards 100% this week, I guess. And the Panthers defense, I mean, on paper, right now, this might be the worst unit in the entire NFL. They lost both starting linebackers last week. Shai Tuttle might back this week, but there are like only 3 or 4 somewhat decent, solid players. Other than that, it's pretty May, and I think that the Bears should have success and should be able to move the ball on the ground and through the air against this Panthers defense. And on the other side, I mean, this upgrade or this change from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton was monumental. This is a completely different offense with Andy Dalton. And what I really like about this offense is they have one of the best pass blocking units in the entire league right now. And Andy Dalton is also helping elevating that offensive line by not taking too many sacks. He's better than Bryce Young in that regard. So the Bears on the other side, they have a very decent defense. Their strength is the defensive line, but that's something that the Panthers offensive line can match up against. So it's really strength on strength. And I think that there will be holes on the Bears defense that Andy Dalton will be able to attack. So to cut a long story short, I think that both offenses have a decent scoring outlook. And I think that the current market price of 42 is is still a tad too low for my taste.
What is the ceiling for the Panthers offense with Andy Dalton?
Probably like a league average offense, I would argue.
That's exactly what I would have said too. I completely agree with you on the Carolina defense. I see the cornerbacks in Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn as two solid players, but the rest of that unit is just bad. And you lose Brian Burns and the linebacker, whose name I can't remember right now.
Shaq Thompson, Josie Jewell.
Yeah, no, the guy they lost in the offseason that had, I think, 14 sacks over the Luvu.
Frankie Luvu. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just not a lot of talent on that side of the ball. And that's definitely something that I would agree with as well. Excellent. Fabian, I wanted to ask you about Jared Goff last week on Forward Progress. You had some really good analysis looking at Jared Goff, and his passing expected points added for the season was negative, which is obviously not good. You claim that he might be regressing to his career average as opposed to his excellent performance in the 2023 season. He and the Detroit offense had a very good performance Monday night against Seattle. Have you changed your view on your projection for Jared Goff?
Not at all, and here's why. I was on Seattle in this game. I was wrong. I think that there are tons of chances for Seattle to maybe sneak into a backdoor cover. I think that I don't know. I think the DK Metcalf fumble hurt, and then I think it was OPI on Tyler Lockett. Some stupid OPI that basically took potential points off the board. So I think that that Geno Smith played out of his mind, and that the Seahawks still had a shot of covering this game. But I was still wrong because I completely underestimated the injuries on the defensive side for the Seahawks. That being said, I think that Jared Goff, it looked very good in the box score. He had a decent game, but I still think that it was pretty much easy mode. So the Lions were able to run the ball pretty much at will. Jared Goff really had a lot of easy completions where his guys did a lot of damage after the catch. And I don't think that this game really taught me anything new about Jared Goff. We know that he has these type of games in him when the run game is working, when the scheme is working, and when he can put his guys in positions to get a decent chunk yards after the catch. I think that that's something that Jared Goff is very good at. But overall, I did not have the impression that he had that perfect or special game. I think he went 18 of 18. Looks great. I think he was the NFC player of the week. Okay, but I think when you watch the game, I personally thought that Geno Smith had a better game than Jared Goff when you really focus on the circumstances that both guys operated under. Geno Smith, the Seahawks went into this game and said, we are not trying to run the ball. We are likely not going to be able to run the ball, so we are going to throw the ball 50 plus times if we have to. And the Lions pretty much know what's coming. Later in the game, Seahawks leaned a little bit more to their run game, but overall it was basically a one-man show. Geno Smith under constant duress really having excellent pocket movement and making plays down the field. I really think that Geno had a better game than Jared Goff when you consider the circumstances and not look at it in a vacuum. So yes, overall I was wrong on the game, but I would still not take too much away from Jared Goff in this one.
Do you think the Seattle defensive injuries is affecting your is part of your analysis that those injuries made it easier for Goff and led to those results?
Yes, absolutely. The Seahawks actually have a very deep defensive line. They don't have too many high end players, but when they can rotate, the second string is really really good. And against Detroit, their first string was basically standing on the sidelines. So the second string was not as good to compete against the first string Lions offensive line, and they did not have enough good bodies to rotate later in the game. So that was a major issue. And I think that might also be an issue when we think about this week because they play the Niners on Thursday Night Football. So this is this classic sandwich spot, so to speak of. And I think that Mike McDonald already hinted that they might rather rest some players and get them ready for the Thursday Night Football game.
Excellent. So Fabian, Minnesota is 4-0. They look pretty good right now. This is not a team that I was particularly high on coming into the season. What is your take on this team, and how will they finish the season?
Completely surprised, especially their offense. Defense, not so much. I was pretty high on their defense. I think that Brian Flores is an excellent DC. And in the offseason, they also tried to get him more personnel. And Jonathan Greenard, basically a replacement, not the same replacement, but basically a replacement for Daniil Hunter. And Andrew Van Ginkel is basically the perfect Brian Flores guy. Like he can rush the passer, he can drop into coverage, he can blitz from the second level. Like he can do it all in the Brian Flores defense. Then they added Stephon Gilmore for a veteran presence in the back end. So all in all, I think that their personnel really upgraded. Blake Cashman is, I think, an upgrade at linebacker. Even Pace is doing a very decent job. So I think that they really have the personnel to get the maximum out of Brian Flores' scheme. And that scheme, I think, really confuses the worst quarterbacks in the league. So it's kind of scheme proof because they will have like a fatter tail when they play bad quarterbacks who struggle to make good pre and post snap reads. The good quarterbacks in the league will have will have it easier against them. But even those, I mean, Stroud, I have some reservations about the Texans' offense in general. They are not good on a play-by-play basis, very low success rate, struggle to move the ball on early downs. And even with a very good young quarterback, they had no shot against this Brian Flores defense. Packers also struggled early, did a lot later in garbage time. I would not call it all garbage time because the Vikings still gave up 29 points at some point and almost made it a close game. They did a very good job against Brock Purdy and the Niners, even though they were dealing with some injuries. So I think that this iteration of the Vikings defense is here to stay. They will have a lot more success against poor quarterback play, and they will probably occasionally get beat by the better quarterbacks in the league and by the better OCs. But overall, I think that this kind of defense has a pretty decent floor.
So is Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett, are they one of the better quarterback OC combos since they played the Jets this week?
I would say no.
Gotcha.
Aaron Rodgers in a vacuum, sure, when you think about the mental side of things, but this combo of Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers, it has looked really, really bad. And the way that the Denver Broncos attacked the Jets offense last week is kind of similar to what Brian Flores will do, even though I don't want to compare the Broncos defense to the Vikings defense. But the Broncos, they are also blitzing like shit. They are doing lots of funky stuff up front. Letting linebackers drop and then sending them on delayed blitzes. And the Jets O-line really struggled to pick up some of that stuff. And I don't think that Nathaniel Hackett is really prepared to bring a lot of counter punches to that kind of defense.
Interesting. Did you have some thoughts on the Minnesota offense before we finish up here?
Oh, yes. I think they are excellently coached on both sides of the ball. I think that KOC is doing a phenomenal job. And it feels like Sam Darnold always has an easy answer present to him. Their offensive line is decent, top 5 tackle tandem. It helps that you have the best wide receiver in the game. Jordan Addison is back healthy, but even without Jordan Addison, they moved the ball very easily. And I think it's 1A, the scheme. They are just guys consistently open. They are doing a phenomenal job on play action, but it's also Darnold sometimes hitting the up and throw that has not been there on further stops, I would argue. So it's probably a combination of Sam Darnold getting better as his career progresses, and being in a very, very good environment.
Fabian Sommer, thank you so much for joining me on the Football Analytics Show. Please let everyone know where they can find you on the internet.
Yes, you can best hit me up on x.com. My handle is at Suma810, SUUMA 810. I'm doing content for the Hammer Betting Network, specifically the Forward Progress channel of the network. We have shows every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can check it out on YouTube. And I also, except this week, usually every week do a Thursday night football preview with Rob Pizzola on the same channel.
Awesome. The Forward Progress Wednesday show is excellent. You guys do a great job. I really enjoy listening to that. So I recommend that everyone go check it out. Fabian, thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
You've been listening to the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host. Just a reminder, you can grab my free sports betting newsletter. I curate tips from the best, like Fabian, and you can check that out at thepowerrank.com. The 60-minute guide to the 2024 football season is my audiobook that contains 2 deep dive stories about analytics and football betting. If you dig in, you can see how my prediction on Tennessee quarterback Will Levis is doing. You may be able to listen on Spotify for no additional charge. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, click on the podcast icon in the top left corner. It's yellow and black. And then click on More Like This. The 60-minute guide to the 2024 football season will appear under host recommendations. Once again, my name is Ed Fang. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week.